feel like it's
Good
probably
morning.
yeah. Good morning. So this is a secret bonus episode, is how we're gonna call it, instead of where you need to fill some time because we always try to drop one. But excuse me, this is us and Andrew. Start that time, please.
There we go. All right. I was waiting for it that time.
I know. Well, I'm so used to having guests that
Yeah.
we do this thing, but we don't need to do the thing at the top. We can just start right up. So there's this thing I've been thinking about talking about that I'm kind of proud of
hmm
in and it's a how to keep going situation.
hmm
So at the end of Leo, which everyone should watch now, we're at over 100, which is very exciting. Uh,
Yeah.
I did the first Liminal Saint, and you'll see it. I don't even need to explain it. And they're huge. There are these huge pieces that take forever, and I've done I think six of them since that I consider part of that series. And like the last one took like 3 weeks to do, and I was working on nothing else but it. And they're very personal in a lot of ways. But then I stopped because it was just so
mm
frustrating and so
mm
like needed to be pixel perfect, and like I had to like take time off from working because I got so burnt out on these images and doing them. And
mm
I was like, well, you have to keep going, you know what I mean?
mm
Like, how do you, for me, I had to ask myself, how do I keep going when I like these images? I love them. I think it's some of my best work, but they were
Oh
so
yeah.
huge and complex and overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an interesting kind of reaction because I think a lot of times I kind of experience the same thing that you're describing, especially with stuff that takes a lot of mental and in some cases physical energy, where it's like you're really proud of it, but you also um, just need to take a break, or get a little bit burnout, that kind of thing. And that's actually, that's been something that has come up a couple times, like in our podcast, the idea of like, getting burnt out and how do you get over it, or how do you take time, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll say what, and like I was really frustrated because I just kind of stopped, and
hmm
like what I had to do was I had to like, and I think the hardest thing, and I'm not perfect yet, but literally it was just like getting back in the studio, sitting in the studio, being in the space, and just like
hmm
it's so easy to not be in the space, but once
hmm
you're there you can start working again. And like the images I made were literally just like double exposures where I took a black and white image and a second black and white image, put two filters on them and put them over
hmm
top of each other, and then start. And I've done a lot of those since,
hmm
because I needed to, and I'm starting to like make stuff. And I'm not unproud of those, but they're not complex. They're
hmm
loose, which is interesting,
hmm
because the stuff before it was so tight. But I think like one of the things I think to get yourself over like a hump a lot of times. Sometimes I think you might and this is just something I'm telling like my story here, I guess, and that's
hmm
okay. Um, had to like really like reset and like go back to like simple. You know what I
hmm
mean? Like, make a pretty image, call it done, take 10 minutes on it, work yourself back up. Make a
hmm
pretty image, call it done, work yourself back up. And I'm still not working at the speed like I want to work at, where I'm
hmm
putting out four or five, but like I'm also now starting to do stuff I like again, and
hmm
stuff that isn't just like a single image over an image. And I think
Yeah.
that's like a good trick that I think is important while creating, is every once in a while just to just take it all the way back to the haiku, write a letter,
Mhm.
like write a single letter. How do you do that with music?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because I feel like I'm actually kind of experiencing almost the opposite
Hmm.
um, problem right now. Um, because and it actually has to do with kind of similar to the Liminal Saints because so Liminal Saints um, I don't want to give anything away to the listeners, but it's going to be part of a project that we're working on,
Yeah,
right? Is that fair to say? Is that
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Actually,
Um,
like I've shared them a couple times on Facebook, which is pretty personal. Like, yeah,
yeah.
Facebook
Mhm.
public, but I always feel kind of weird because I understand that they're not completely done. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I consider them. I still consider them a collaborative part. Like, they are for Yonko.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, and I'm glad you shared them because, and I love what you wrote about it. And so if anyone's listening and hasn't seen it, then I encourage you to go look at Brandon's Facebook page. And
But
I
find
guess,
my Facebook page,
yeah,
befriend me, look it up. All I can just tell you is it's about having dyslexia real bad and having
yeah,
ADHD real bad.
yeah. And I loved how you described it and how you wrote about it. I just thought it was fantastic, and it gave me insight into, what a little bit more of how it relates to, what we're working on and that kind of thing. So,
I will say
um,
that writing is a great example of write drunk, edit sober. Because I wrote there are a
mhm,
bunch of edits because I had like this I was working on a show and the show was done
mhm.
and I was like, I'll have a beer. And I was like, I had a beer, I feel pretty good. I'm gonna talk about my feelings online. Like I like read it and I was like, oh, this is the ideas aren't bad, Brandon, but we gotta work on grammar, my guy. Like
Well, but that's part of the editing process. And actually you sort of alluded to that, like at the end you kind of said like it's 50-50. This is if this is still going to be up, tomorrow
yeah,
morning. Um, and which I think is I think it's really cool that you included even that, because um that's just, really bearing your soul, and like, because hey, I mean, like we might not have ever read it at all,
yeah.
if you had gone, on the 50 side of taking it down, so
Yeah, so
um
well, that's and that adds danger. You have to have danger.
yeah,
So
exactly.
what are your problems with this sentence?
Well, I feel like I'm, because it's like a lot of our things, I feel like it's becoming there's more people involved, and
Hmm.
um there's more ideas and more, it's a little bit of a broader project, I think, than we've done before.
Yeah.
And so I think that the problem I'm having is actually sort of finding a way to bring all of that stuff together. And that so the problem that I'm having that results in like the opposite of what you're doing is that I'm actually having a problem kind of getting started with all of it. Um, just because it feels a little bit uh like all the parts aren't there in my head right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's the first time like we got two going and
Mhm.
we got it's this is the first time for us that we were like we're not in between projects, but we're just trying to get one of them to like actually start moving. And we're
Yeah.
having like and there's just some gear problems with this one. Uh
Yeah.
that are just like it's bigger than us. It's not like asking
Yeah.
one person to do a single thing. There's a lot of steps to it.
Yeah.
Like we still have sampler like ugh, it's funny. It's sometimes I have to, when I talk to my therapist and I say this stuff, she'll be like, "Wait, you do that too?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's I pro wrestle as well." Um, so it's one of those things that like it's easy. It's like it's so easy because like we have so much fun doing it to realize
Yeah.
that we put a lot on our plate,
Yeah.
like in general and with like Yonko is a big project.
Yeah.
Like there is the real threat that it becomes a hot sauce line. Like that is a real problem that can happen at any
Yeah.
moment. Um,
Well,
and
and that's what's kind of, fun about it, I think, is that there are so many different possibilities just within this like kind of weird experimental world that we're sort of building. Like, there are a lot of different possibilities for it, and
yeah, and well, there's a lot of like secret steps. Like there's a whole sticker campaign that I
yeah,
do, and like there's there's yeah, I guess that's and then there's the sampler stuff and 12 by 12
yeah,
and that is just it's a big and there's the podcast that we're currently doing. How meta is this?
right,
Uh, but one of the things we it's easy to forget how much you do sometimes. I think that's as
yeah,
an artist. I think I use the word balance a lot when I talk about stuff like
mm,
this. When I talk about, but it's easy to get a bad balance where you feel like you're not doing anything and realize like, no,
mhm,
you're doing a lot. You have to treat yourself with some level of kindness,
mhm,
but also being like, you got to work. You know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I also think that well, I actually just realized that this kind of actually this feeds into exactly what we're talking about, because I just realized that the project that I'm talking about is different from the project you're talking about, and so so
There's no reason why Andy Warhol called it a factory, huh?
right, exactly.
Um,
So so the I mean, we could talk more offline, because again, I
yeah.
don't want to give,
What
but
do we do? Is there a project I missed? We have four, right? Is it
well,
four?
yeah. So well, the one, so I think so.
This is what the people want. This is what they want.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So we
Well,
have
I'm trying to decide like how much to say without giving away the project,
we can do names. We can do names.
so
There's there's Zodiac Cycle, right?
yeah, Zodiac, yeah.
There's 12 by 12,
Total, yeah. Okay.
which is also sampler, which
Right,
is
exactly. Which with that one, like I'm okay. Like there, I don't. The only reason I refer to it now as 12 by 12 is just so I can keep organized with it.
yeah.
But I'm fine like with moving it over to sampler. That's totally
I
fine.
think it's such a we have such a charming like that I think is one song away from being done
Yeah,
or having one
exactly. Yeah.
album done, and that's so exciting, and
It
that's so
is. Yeah.
right? Like that's such a different type of. Okay, so we have sampler. This is the end of this podcast. Is us just going, wait, what are we doing right now?
Right.
This is
Exactly.
good. That's part of the reason we have this podcast. Okay, so we have
Mhm.
Zodiac 12 by 12,
Yeah. So all those are fine. Yeah, those are fine.
the podcast,
Mhm.
Liminal Saints,
Yeah. And
and
then and
Scam.
scam. When we what? Yeah. When we say scam. Yeah.
Yeah, we have,
So actually the project that I was talking about was scam.
oh yeah,
Because that's the one I'm having trouble because like we've got a writer we've involved. There's like samples. There's all this stuff like kind of involved. That's a little bit bigger than stuff that we that
I
we
Scam isn't is I feel like Liminal Saints exists a little bit because we both got intimidated by Scam.
yeah
Earlier.
yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah. So
Oh god, there's so many steps to this thing. Um,
yeah,
okay.
and and like I'm still excited about it. Um, and I think we're getting there. It's just like a little bit slower process, than I think that we originally thought. But I'm still excited about it, and I think that it'll get there eventually.
Wait, which project is this?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and then, like that's the other thing is like as we work on this, Zodiac, well, both Zodiacs are and will kind of always be. We might bring in like one person or one or two people as
yeah,
like do this one thing. Like Zodiac one, we had a writer, and then
yeah,
Zodiac two, we used Teddy for an image because I was just as like
yeah.
a part of an image that I jumped
Mhm.
off of. But like that, and we might have a writer at the end of Zodiac one, but that was it. It was just
Yeah,
two people, and like it's so much easy. Like I feel like every time you add a new person to a artistic experience, like the work quadruples. Like it
it
just becomes
does. Yeah,
so much more. That like I feel like if we had like even like this, when we started bringing guests in, it became such a more complex thing that we had to do.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But like I think it's good, but it's a pain, man. It is a pain to bring other people
It is, yeah, because I think what happens is like with two people, I mean, really a lot of it comes down to just like scheduling and like energy and like what projects people are working on. Because with when it's just the two of us, then uh, first of all, like the scheduling is easy. Even with like Zodiac, it's like okay, we get on the schedule like sort of involuntarily, like certain days of the week become better for one of us, to send it back and forth and stuff like
in.
that. And so that it just becomes a little bit more natural, and then like all of a sudden like add a third person into the mix and it's like it just like blows up the whole schedule.
Well, and like
um
because we've now worked together for a
yeah,
while in a
right,
weird way. Our vision is kind of locked very similar,
exactly,
and we can talk to each other real good,
yeah,
real good.
yeah,
Mostly
I think so,
because like it. One of the things that can be hard is like I don't want to step on your toes, you don't want to step on my toes, but you
mm,
can also be like, I've gone, hey, can we do this sonically? And then
yeah,
you've gone, hey, can I get this image?
yeah,
That's easy, but it's harder. But we've had that established over time. It's hard when you bring
exactly,
another person to be like, this doesn't work for me. I don't like this,
exactly,
and
yeah.
like that's a whole different challenge.
It really is, yeah. And because there's especially like when you've got a project that you've been working on for a long time and then
Hmm.
somebody comes in new, then I mean it's definitely hard like if you have like three or four people at the beginning, but I think it's even harder if you've already kind of established the ideas and the philosophy and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and then you bring in somebody new and it's like okay, you're kind of like you don't want to say this, but you kind of are expecting them to conform to, your your philosophy, like just automatically, which
yeah,
isn't fair. I mean, that's not fair at all.
and it's
Yeah.
it's it's the opposite of what you want. You want new eyes and new ideas, but
Yeah.
that physically hurts. Like physically,
Yeah.
that hurts that you have to like show it to someone who like if you show it to someone who's like an audience member and they have a vibe with it, that's great. It's cool that they
Yeah,
vibe, and like that sometimes can honestly feel weird, even if it's very positive. You're like,
yeah.
yeah, this is actually about my childhood, and you're like, no, it's about my childhood, you fool.
Right.
So but like the other thing is like that's one thing. But if you bring in another person, they're like, oh, I think we should do this. You have to be like, okay, I have to look at this thing. I have to look at this thing objectively now. Like that's really
Yeah.
hard. Which one of the things I do want to bring up that you have to remember is you make your art. You are not your art. I think that is such a
Mhm.
like good thing to remember, and you can grow so fast because it can take critique. You will survive.
Say
It's
that one more time as we're
oh you are
as
you
sorry.
you
Yeah,
make
say it one
your
more time.
art. You are not your art. Best piece of advice I have. Almost
Awesome.
impossible to
Yeah.
follow.
Awesome. All right. Let me stop that.